Much alive on your television this morning on ITV. Yes, we are reaching you directly from Benin, Lagos, and also Abuja. So our Lagos studio is on, where Joshua is right there. Joshua, good morning to you one more time. Hello, Joshua. All right, so we also have Abuja. Abuja is also there. Abuja, good morning. Yeah, Tolu Lokpe is right there in Abuja. Tolu, good morning.
Good morning to you, Evans.
Yeah. All right, so the resignation of former Minister of Science and Technology, Uche Nnaji, is already making waves, and it's a double jeopardy for him because while the authority of the University of Nsukka has denied that he did not complete that what he actually was admitted for. The authority of the National Youth Service Corps has also said that they don't have such record that he ever served as a corps member. Now, what is your reaction?
That's really a sad situation for the former Minister of Science and Technology right there, talking about Geoffrey Uche Nnaji. And I'm sure at this point in time, he will be taking a cursory look at himself where he did go wrong. But the fact that the university said they cannot authenticate that, he did gain admission to the university, but he did not finish his course in the university, and they wonder how he was able to get the certificate. And also with the NYC coming out to say they cannot authenticate his certificate, that's, and just like you said, it's a double jeopardy for him, not what you really want at this point in time. But my worry has to do with the fact that since his appointment, there's been a series of allegations against him concerning his certificate. But it took the minister to resign before the federal government could take a decision on that. And that makes me feel so sad. And I feel there should be a proper channel that will be in place where you can be able to authenticate the certificate of those who are running for political offices. And I think it's no rocket science, and I don't think it should have taken us this long for us to have confirmed this. So let's assume that the minister did not tender his letter of resignation. So probably he would have continued in office. And that's really a slap on the face of over 250 million Nigerians. And so many people who are also in a good position that could have taken up their appointment. In other sense, what we are saying that we've not really been getting the value for value for the position he claimed, the certificate he claimed to have. And that's really sad right there. And at this point in time, and I think certain steps, stringent steps must be taken by federal government to forestall reoccurrence of this. But this is not the first time such is happening. We've had this situation in the past where the former House of Rep member talking about Buhari at that point in time was also alleged to have failed a certificate that is not that cannot be authenticated at that point in time before it decided to step down. These are issues that continue to crop up in the system. It also shows lacuna in our education system because the process of confirming shouldn't have taken this long. And that's a worrisome trend for me because when you look at the time frame when he was appointed until now when he decided to resign, 2 years, and that's really sad. A lot of injustice has done to so many people that could have benefited, and a lot of the service has also been done to this nation. Having somebody whose certificate cannot be authenticated in office for 2 years, it doesn't look well on the system. Evans, I must tell you.
It doesn't look well, and that's the situation that we find ourselves in the country. I mean, a situation whereby you give a very sensitive position to an individual, only for you to discover that after 2 years, his credentials are questionable. Now, the big question that we ask to that is that the National Assembly, I mean, the National Assembly screen, and of course, they screen and they go through all the series of checking these appointees, designates at the time they are, nominated to see whether they are qualified or not. And at the end of the day, they say that, okay, they are free to go. So the big question that we ask to that is that, is it that we don't have bodies to actually vet certificates in this country? I mean, it's heartbreaking to know that a whole minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, is fingered in this kind of situation? Well, he has said that his political rivals are up against him. So investigations are ongoing, by the way. So let's see what it pans out to be. But already the authorities of the Nigerian University, the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, and also the authority of the National Youth Service Corps has reacted. And that puts, Uche Nnaji in a very bad spotlight, because if the authority of University of Nigeria Nsukka has said that, okay, we have such record that you actually completed, your degree program, and also the authority of the NYSC has said that, okay, you actually completed, you served, then of course Uche Nnaji would have been in a better position. But right now, these two bodies have said that we don't have such record. So the big question that we ask is, are we going to allow this matter to just be swept under the carpet? With the resignation of Uche Nnaji, handle the situation? Because for the past 2 years, he has been a minister, and of course, he has been receiving salaries, he has been receiving, monies and all that. So with the nation, can the nation afford to just allow the situation to go right there away? That's the big question, Tolu.
Yeah, really sad right there. Just like you said, he has been traveling around the country, taking extra code, moving from one part of the country to another, and also traveling out of the country for so many things. It has been a total disservice to this nation if you have somebody in that esteemed position not having proper requirement. You raised some salient point in the course of this conversation. The fact that this man had to be screened by DSS. He put DSS position also in a broad daylight. That what are they really investigation? Before you can be allowed to before you can pass through the process, you must also be screened by the DSS. And also, you talked about the National Assembly. What are all the funds they are collecting? What are they using it for? Because they are supposed to be the people who also check all this balance, check all this, and to see whether this person has passed through the process. Did they have a proper channel in place where they can also confirm certificates that are being presented by some of the people that are coming before them? And it raises a whole lot of questions, because there is so much fund being allotted to the National Assembly. What are they using it for? Because they are supposed to checkmate all these things. And also, the DSS issue is also annoying for me, and it's really, I'm miffed about this. The fact that a candidate can pass through the process of screening, which DSS is one of the major bodies that it must also go through. And they can't confirm the certificate of the individual. Besides the fact that they are checking for criminal records, links with whether with one terrorist organization and the other. What about the certificate? Did they not go through this process to also check whether this person is who he claims to be? And that's really sad right there, because it's bringing some of this paraphernalia of office of government into questions about their capability to deliver. Because you can't, it's just like bringing a doctor to head a particular place where it's supposed to be headed by an engineer. And we can imagine what it's going to deliver at the end of the day. And that's the situation we found ourselves right there. A country of over 250 million people, we can't be able to authenticate the certificate of a minister. It's an esteemed position. It's not something somebody can just wake up one day and get into it. Whether you're a politician or not, these are positions that deserve to be given to those who merit it, those who have been able to prove beyond reasonable doubt that they have what it takes to hold position. Because we're talking about science and technology. These are no, this is really, especially when we are in the age of where we are in the tech age, where there is a level of advancement in technology. We need somebody who is smart up there, who has what it takes, who can also realize that for Nigeria to be able to be mentioned in the global trend, we also must be able to be innovative. And when you have somebody who does not have a certificate, you can imagine what you are going to get at the end of the day. But it shouldn't just stop here. I think a proper check must also be put in place for all the funds that he has collected while in office. All those things should be returned. And I think the federal government should take this drastic step concerning that. Because how do you forestall a recurrence of this if the government does not take drastic steps? Let's not take it as an APC matter or probably a political issue. We shouldn't be swept under the carpet. Proper things must be done that will forestall a recurrence of this in future. So any Nigeria could not just wake up that he can go to Oluyole Oluwole and get a certificate and serve because he knows Tinubu, or probably he knows somebody somewhere in the corridors of power and they can get him that. So a carpenter could just wake up one day and said he's going to be a minister for health because he has been able to get a certificate from Oluwole, and that's really sad. So it brings to question the organs that we have that are supposed to be checking some of these things. The DSS issue is also one area right now that must be fingered in this issue because they have failed this nation. They have failed to do what they are supposed to do at the right time because they are supposed to also provide checks. And the National Assembly is just a collection of people who gather together, who are looking out for their own interests without the interest of nation at heart. Because they also are supposed to have a channel where these things can be done. Because this is not the first time it's happening. Just like I mentioned, we had the case in the past of Buhari, who was also a member of the National Assembly, who at one of the time was also fingered in certificate forgery. And I think that should have been a lesson for the National Assembly to realize that we must forestall a recurrence of this. We must have proper channels for those who are coming. And that's also, I think everybody in the National Assembly should be queried. Their certificates should be checked right now because that is what is bringing. Because if you don't claim you are what you are not, if you have a school start certificate, present that. If you have a BSc, present that. If you have a master's, show that. But don't go and claim the certificate of, go and present the certificate that you don't have the qualification to be able to speak on. And that is what is happening right now. And I think this is also raising questions about the caliber of people that we have running our offices. No wonder we are not getting the kind of results we are supposed to get. You can imagine how many other people are occupying positions in the corridors of power who does not have the certificate they are presenting that they have. And that's really worrisome for me, Evans, I must say.
I must also thank the fourth realm of the estate, that's what we call them now, talking about my profession, the media profession, because it actually took a media organization to carry out the investigation, and off they went and they discovered that Uche Nnaji does not actually have those qualifications that he claims to have. So you see the power of the media and all that. Now, somebody also suggested that other ministers, that their credentials should be screened. Now, the big question that we asked to that is that can we afford to do all that now? You know my country now, you know our country, you and I know our country, Nigeria. Now, if we say that, okay, let them, do a kind of screening. Let certificates of ministers be screened. Now, that's going to take us way, way back because a lot of time is going to be wasted and a lot of other issues are going to come up to that. Well, I have my uncle too, my colleague too in Lagos, Joshua. Joshua, nice to be with you on the program this morning.
Good morning, Evans, and of course, it's good to have you on the program this morning.
Yeah, the resignation of Uche Nnaji is making waves in Benin. I don't know how you guys are feeling about it in Lagos.
Of course, it's a national issue, not just peculiar to Benin, as it were. But then, it's quite a shame and, of course, a national embarrassment to have a minister who do not have the certificate he parades to be, be obtaining, as it were, from a reliable university. Because come to look at it, you say this particular minister has actually been screened by the National Assembly. What actually do they screen these ministers on? Is it based on competence and character? What about the certification that they claim to parade? Has anyone done, due diligence when it comes to fact-checking this certificate if actually it was not forged? So what actually do the National Assembly screen? That's the question. So what makes us think that there are some within the cabinet of this present administration that are not still parading forged certificate? We once had a president whose certificate, especially where he claimed to have schooled, is still in, somewhat, secrecy, as it were. We once had a president who claimed that his certificate actually, got lost when he was raided, especially at his home. So when we see these things happening, it makes us begin to wonder what kind of country we live in, where people find themselves in public offices, but obviously what they claim to have, they actually are forged. And now we're seeing somebody who has already been traveling with taxpayers' money with Estacos, only to realize that the certificate he claims to have was actually forged. So it means that we now have to go back to the reset button to start checking every minister in this administration to find out what actually they are parading. So it means that we're going to put the administration on a pause mode, because obviously we cannot have ministers who claim to have competence and character but do not have the required certificate they claim to have. It's a big slap to the nation at large, especially to our individual and collective intelligence. It's a big slap to the DSS. It's also a big slap to the National Assembly, who claim their oversight function is actually part of what we see when it comes to screening of ministers. So as it stands right now, the whole thing is completely laughable, and definitely we cannot expect anything good when it is not having a proper foundation. That's the way I look at it.
So Nigerians, are interested in this matter, and they are thanking the authority of the authority of the NYSC, that's the National Youth Service Corps, and of course the authority of the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. Now, what are they thanking these two bodies for? For the way they have allowed the Freedom of Information Act, which is already a law in Nigeria, to have its way. Now, remember I told you a while ago that it was actually a media organization, to be precise. It was Premium Times that carried out this investigation, and of course they wrote to the authority of University of Nigeria, Nsukka, and the authority of the National Youth Service Corps to find out what actually happened, whether they have any such record. And it was found that the certificate that Uche Nnaji, gave are typical forgeries, forged certificates that he has been parading around. So you see that when we talk about laws in this country, now the reason why I'm so interested in this matter this morning is the way the Freedom of Information Act has taken a toll, because a lot of Nigerians are still doubting that, look, that thing doesn't exist in Nigeria. But I tell you, once again, the Freedom of Information law, the Freedom of Information Act has been put to place. It has been put to text one more time, and you can see how it is working. It's been since 2011 that the National Assembly and even the presidency then had to sign that bill into law. And as we speak now, it is an act in the country, and you can use it. You can use it to find anything, so long as it is on the right path of truth and fairness, and definitely you will get what you deserve. So we say a very big thank you to Premium Times for carrying out this investigation. Just like what my colleague said in Lagos, that I was going to go back to the reset buttons now to see that all ministers, operation, tender your certificate. Let's see how, whether you actually own those certificates that you parade around. But you can be rest assured that somehow this whole thing will also blow up again, because I trust Nigeria, and of course I trust media organizations. It has started with one now, and you see that certainly it will go to other ministers, and more revelations are going to be coming out in all this as we speak on. Tolu.
Also has to do with the fact that it took 2 years before we can come up with something like this. And we don't have that luxury of time to be able to do something like that. It raises questions about the modus operandi of this nation. How do you check things when we feel that there's something wrong? Because this is not, the issue with the Premium Times coming up with this case did not start now. Immediately that man was appointed as a minister, so many questions came up about the eligibility of him and also his certificate. And I felt at that point in time, justice should have been served. The federal government should have taken drastic action to ensure that this does not get to this level. You can imagine that 24 months after, before, when the case is on his head, before the minister decided to resign. He also showed the kind of person we have running some of our offices right there. He also showed that the people we have do not have the interest of this nation at heart. For the fact that you know that the issue has been raised concerning their credibility, I felt at that point in time, he should have resigned immediately and said, let me clear my name. If Tinubu wants later on, he can be able to appoint me. But because he wants to enjoy the paraphernalia of office, he also want to be called a minister, he decided to allow this thing to tarry. And in process, the taxpayers' fund has been wasted on him. And I feel so sad about that. But it also begs the question is, should we continue in that same wavelength? Should we need to wait for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years before we can authenticate certificate of somebody running for an office? It's really sad. We shouldn't be going through that same process. We should. I haven't learned from the experience from what has happened in the past. I think by now this issue about certificate forgery should not be a thing. It should not even be coming up in this age and time, because we can't just say it took us 2 years. It took premium times for us to be able to discover this. If this issue has not been rubbed on the face of this minister, probably it will just be swept under the carpet. And it makes me so sad that this could be happening at this time and age. And I think this, just like Joshua said, we need to take a look at all the people that we have in running for offices, or those who are currently occupying offices. What is their credibility? The least thing we can do is to have people who claim to be what they are, not people who claim to be what they are not. And that will be a total disservice to this nation. We can't progress when we continue to work in this manner. And I think I support the fact that we need to do proper checks on all those who are occupying ministerial positions, the director general position, and every office that we have in this country. Because we can't have wrong people managing wrong places.
All right, thank you, Tolu. There. Now, one other thing that also came to the fore, as a matter of fact, yesterday, it was the return of the embattled senator, talking about Senator Natasha Akpoti. You know, she returned back to work yesterday. She did 6 whole months, in suspension. As, all the issues, we'll be following all the issues out there. And eventually she returned back to work. And in her response, she is thanking her constituency, saying that they gave her hope and courage to resist intimidation, and also pray that God Almighty, it will never, never happen again. But what are the major takeaways that we all get to learn from the issue of Natasha's case? Briefly, guys, let's quickly talk about Natasha, as she returned back to work now. Joshua.
Situation, given the fact that this was a lady who was duly elected by her constituents, and obviously during the course of her duty, she experienced some very uncomfortable situations that she had to speak against, and that led to, her unjust suspension. But of course, it brings to the issue of how safe are we at our place of work, regardless of the fact that she's a female person, without being too much emphatic about, the female gender. Now, the issue about Natasha is one that sometimes, gives an individual case to worry. If you have issues that bothers you about a place where you work, it then means that, freedom of expression, as it were, has been stifled. And to a large extent, if you have to speak up against an ill treatment or somewhat an unprofessional, engagement that you engaged in as a senator in that particular, jurisdiction that you preside over, it then means that some certain forces are going to fight back. And when they fight back, definitely you have no one to cry to. And it's quite unfortunate that she was suspended, and that led to her, not being able to operate within the sphere that she is allowed to. But of course, as it were, she's back to office, and let's hope that good governance, as it were, will be able to come back to our constituents, given the fact that now that she has been allowed to get back to office.
All right, Tolu.
So Natasha is really an interesting case. I think she has been able to turn the case on its head and has been able to gather support, especially when you remember some of the times she went back to Kogi State, the massive level of support from his base right in Kogi. And I think in the process of really undermining her, she has been able to turn that turn it on its head and be able to become something bigger than what most people thought. But I also must also give a big kudos to her, the fact that she remained resilient in the face of all these challenges. And I think so many other young women out there, they can see Natasha as somebody they can really emulate, in the fact that she didn't allow that to weigh her down. She didn't just cower and be crying and waiting for support. Rather, she took the bull by the horn and they went all out to really fight her case. And it's a good thing that she has returned back to the chamber, and also to continue to fight for the interest of our people. And I'm happy to see her back. And that is a strong statement out there that you can be whatever you want to be, not minding the challenges, the forces against you.
All right, so yesterday you would have seen how she returned back to the Senate. She came in like a hero, and with all hailings and praises and all that. And one thing that stands clear is that the suspension is over and she's back to work. So the issue of constituency development that she's is known for is going to continue. That's what Natasha Akpoti has promised her constituency in Kogi State. And also too, we also understand that the issues, some of the issues went to court, and all that. Natasha took some of the issues to court, and we also understand that the presidency of the Senate also took some of the issues to court, and that was where the question arose, whether it was the presidency of the Senate that ought to, or it was the Senate itself. So it was almost very, very argumentative. There was no doubt about that. All the issues concerning Natasha Akpoti, they became very argumentative. But I think it's time to shift sword now, because the suspension is over. So we are not going to be seeing Natasha Akpoti in suspension again. So she's fully back to work now. So I think it's high time that we should allow the sleeping dogs to lie, so that the issues of development in her constituency in Kogi Central should continue as the case go on. All right, so we'll just take a short pause now, and when we return, we're going to be going to Lagos. We'll go to Lagos quickly. Let's see how we can continue the discussion segments on this program this morning on ITV, after which we'll return back to Abuja, and that's the way it has to be.